Well, welcome everyone. We're still going to let some people trickle in, but we did want to get started and make sure that we have the full time allotted to Ms. Hannah Chapman. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're talking about financial planning for law firm owners. As you know, I'm Jessica Medina. I am a former lawyer turned accredited financial counselor. And as much as I love talking about money, there are some parts of the financial industry that I just don't touch. So I love bringing in my friends to help talk about investments and tax planning and insurance. And Hannah touches all of those things, especially for business owners. So this is a particularly tricky part of the financial industry. And I love having Hannah as an expert to come in and help us work through these issues. Hannah is from X Squared Wealth Planning. She is a senior wealth advisor. I'm going to let her do a more fulsome introduction of herself because she has so much going on. So let me stop sharing my screen so we can see our full faces. Just so everyone knows, this is being recorded. You probably got that crazy Zoom warning in the beginning. And there will be time for questions at the end. So please save them. If you have questions for Hannah, she'll be happy to tackle them today. And this will be sent out as the recording later in case you have to drop off. So without further ado, Hannah, thank you so much for joining us. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessica. I am so excited to be here and talking to the people that I love working with absolutely the most. And as you said, I am actually the founder, owner of X Squared Wealth Planning. I am a wealth advisor. I've been in the financial industry for about 15 years. I started at a bank, got really interested in trusts for some reason. Anyone that came in with a more complicated situation, I was like, really interested in learning more. And that led me to financial planning, going into the actual, finance industry as a career. So my background is actually in music performance. I'm a flutist, and my husband was a trombone player as well. But my entire career has been in finance, from the time I graduated from college. So in late 2020, I decided that I wanted to go out on my own, start my own firm. So I have, for the last about 6 months or so, I've been on my own and my own. I'm a business owner myself and all of that. And so it's even taking that experience that I had with business owners at a large corporate firm and being able to really just amplify it and really have my message tailored specifically to those people is where I wanted to take my business. So that is particularly particularly pertinent, especially for a lot of lawyers who are in that exact same position. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoy working with attorneys in general, because professionally we tend to financial advisors and attorneys that professional kinship kind of, very, very similar. A lot of type A list makers that I love to work with. So it's, there's that aspect of it, but there's also that piece that, I've been there. I've been in a big corporate culture where you're just really, here's your box and you fit in here. And, when you don't fit that mold, when you're not part of the boys club, as we call it a lot of times, finance and law are very similar in that regard too. You have to find and make a space for yourself where you can be your own advisor in whatever way that works for you. So it's my absolute pleasure to work with people who are doing the same thing, and to support them in creating the space, and actually also creating the visibility for other people to know that they can also do that same thing.
You've been very brave in choosing lawyers and business owners as your clients. And so tell me a little bit about how working with business owners is different than the work you might have done with individuals when you were at a larger financial institution, maybe working with, just kind of high net worth individuals who work for other companies or things like that. Tell us a little bit about how that's different and what kinds of things you think are important for clients to think about when they're business owners.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a really interesting divide in wealth planning, because we do have where I'm based. I'm in Cincinnati. I am registered to work in all 50 states, but I'm based in Cincinnati, where we also have Procter and Gamble and Johnson and GE, just huge corporate presences where we have a lot of account executives and vice presidents and all of those things that have high salaries, but also, executive compensation and different things like that to balance. So, I have a lot of experience there. And what I was finding was that, okay, we've got these executives, they make a lot of money. That's great. It's a pretty easy situation. But business owners over here, they also make a lot of money and they need a lot more help, because it's not just a W-2, they're not getting a salary every single month, like you're making your money. Like there's just so much more. You don't have a 401k to plug into. You're not getting, long-term incentives and bonuses and things like that. Like you are making your own bonus. And so there's just so much more planning that goes into that to me, for my background and for the experiences that I had growing up, that really resonated with the business owner community versus, just highly paid executives at businesses. And that, not to say that's a need. Like there are, big needs for those people too. They also, they're really good at what they do, and they don't necessarily know how to do retirement planning. But that's where I wanted to differentiate myself, that like I love all of you and I want you to have an advisor that's perfect for you, but I really know a lot about and want to serve the business owner community. Um, so I'll give you a little bit of background as to why that matters to me so much, because I think it'll make a little bit more sense why, like, isn't it easier just to go find those Procter and Gamble employees? Like, you know, I don't know, maybe. But when I was growing up, my parents and my dad's family, especially, they're all entrepreneurs. But we owned a painting business, a repainting business in Arizona. So I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And if anyone knows anything about Phoenix, it's that it gets to 120 degrees in the summer, right? So it's a very hot place to live. My parents owned this repaint company for exteriors, for residences, interiors, exteriors, all that. Very, very hardworking, like extremely hardworking. So they were entrepreneurs, but I call it kind of like a working class entrepreneur. They are doing the work. They were out there, like actually painting, doing the bids, doing the bookkeeping, doing the taxes, like just all of it. My parents were doing by themselves. And there were times where, it was just really lean. And we had to deal with that. I had three brothers, so there were four kids. We helped with the business a lot. My first job was like sweeping things away from a wall, like dirt away from a wall so that it could be prepped to paint when I was probably like 10 or 12. So, having that background, like seeing my parents work so hard. Um, and basically what they needed to do was just pay their employees. So there were other employees, and that was always the fear, like paying the bills, paying the employees, taking enough so that we can, have what we need as well. But they never had anything left over to save. And as I got to be a little bit older, finance was kind of sparking in me pretty early. I loved counting money when I was little. Like that was we had those big, like 5-gallon jars or jugs for water full of change, and I'd like sort it and count it. And so, yeah, I had there was a little bit of a money scarcity in our family that made, even as a child, that I started wanting to like save money. If I got birthday money or anything, like I would hang on to it for a long time. And as I became a teenager and started learning more about finances, it started to worry me. I mean, I was worried from a pretty young age that my parents weren't saving. I learned about 401ks and like, what is that? Like, do you have anything like that? No, we don't have anything like that. Um, So, seeing how hard my parents worked, and then in 2008, 2009, with the Great Recession, when that hit in the Phoenix area, especially, the housing crisis was humongous. I know it took a toll on several areas. Phoenix was one of the really hard hit places. And, people, if they don't have money in their homes, if they don't have money, if they're losing their jobs, they're not going to repaint their house. Um, and my dad had actually, it had had a few good years, the business did. Before that, my dad had actually opened another business as well. And that crisis, after about 2 to 3 years, took both businesses under, because there wasn't a reserve there. So from that point, till today, my parents really had to kind of reinvent themselves several times. And funnily enough, they're both now, my parents are divorced at this point, but they are both um, entrepreneurs again. So through lots of iterations, it still came back to 1099 employees um, that, needed more help. And me being where I am now, I finally get the chance to help them see, like, they're like, oh, I finally get it. Like, I finally am at this place where I understand that I need to save. I need to put things away. I need to save for taxes. I need to, um, so it's a blessing for me to be where I am now. Even, it's been 15 years, but it took them a while to, like, be like, you're a financial advisor rather than my daughter.
I love the idea that you are now basically going back in time and helping your parents, right? And helping entrepreneurs who might be at the beginning or even in a growth stage of their business, making better financial decisions. And you touched on retirement a little bit in your story, and I think when talking about retirement as a business owner, it's such a different landscape than as a W-2 employee. And I mean, even when you're working for a company, you might not have a good idea of what your benefits are, where you should be putting your retirement money. Should you be participating in all the plans in one way and all of that? It's confusing enough. But then you get into the self-employed space and it's a whole new ball game, right? All of the rules are different. So talk to us a little bit. I think this is a big issue for a lot of business owners, both from a security standpoint, and also just from what's going to be the best route. There's so many things to choose from, and if you don't know there's things to choose from, wait for it, because Hannah's going to tell you all the things you have to choose from.
Yeah. There are so many options, and there are so many different factors that go into what's the right choice for your business. So there are different kinds of IRAs, which stands for individual retirement account. You may have heard of a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA or a SEP, simplified employee pension IRA, or a simple IRA. There are just so many. They all mean something a little bit different. So we won't get into, like, the actual nuts and bolts of all of that, but we'll do kind of an overview, and how the size and scope of your firm really plays into what the right choice is for you. So we've got those IRAs that tend to be usually smaller firms can utilize those pretty well, and maybe up to a couple of partners and a few employees. Solo entrepreneurs have very different options as well. So you've got this IRA bucket, this umbrella, where there are a lot of different IRAs. We'll go into that a little bit more. When you have say partners, I've worked with firms who, just two attorneys, they don't maybe even don't even start with employees. It's just the two attorneys that are working together and making, big money compared to where they were before. I've, seen people launch and immediately are making in the 300s for income. And at that point, you also have some special options with cash balance plans, or defined contribution plans, defined benefit plans, and cash balance plans. Those are another little bit more complicated issue that, might be the right fit, depending on also your age. That could play a big factor. As you get to be a bigger firm, you might need to look into a 401k. And that's, really the same thing as what you hear about, at any other company, but you can run a 401k for your firm as well. And even if you're a solo entrepreneur, you can also have a 401k. And it just depends. It's going to depend on what your income level is, how much you can save, how much you want to save, and some of the tax planning issues around that. So where, Jessica, I'll let you kind of tell me which one do you think you have the most of right now? The solo, like completely solo, or owner with employees? Where should we start?
Well, I think the majority of the folks who come to me often have not started their firm yet, right? So that is a dream that they have, and I think the question of, usually it's easiest to just start something on your own, unless you're going to kind of, start maybe a partnership. You have another attorney, but it rarely involves, associates and staff and things like that at the beginning. And I think talking about, if there is some sort of a trajectory of retirement options for business owners. Law firms might, start with a single partner who's just by themselves doing all of the work. And then maybe they bring on one associate. Then maybe they, combine with another partner. And then they have more associates. And then they have staff and all of these wonderful things. If there is a way to kind of think through, is there a natural trajectory for business owners? Of course, and this is the disclaimer for both me and Hannah, right? We can't give individualized advice for everyone's particular situation, but we can give you an idea of what factors to think about when you are considering different options. And then, of course, you need to meet with an expert to get your personalized advice, especially in the investment space. But thinking through, is there a natural trajectory for these kinds of products? And what does it look like for law firm owners?
Yes. So again, we'll start from the income aspect, because a lot of these accounts do have income caps, or things that you need to think about, that you can't just put however much you want into any account. So let's start with the, if you're just starting out, you're just launching your own firm, maybe you contributed to a 401k earlier in the year. If, say, it's midway, say this is a good example. So it's June, maybe you've already made $90,000 this year, or, whatever, and put money into a 401k. What you expect to make, you might not know. So you might need to just kind of wait until next year to see how much did you make. Are you in different eligibility spaces where, it makes sense that you can contribute to a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA? If you have a spouse that has income and you file a joint tax return, that is also going to, make a big difference on what you're allowed to do with regards to either a traditional or a Roth IRA. So those are the basic ones, but they do have income caps. So if you make over, I think it's around $188,000 total joint household, you are starting to phase out from being able to contribute to a Roth at all. I actually had a client who, in her first year, not a lawyer, but an author, she got a book deal and suddenly was making, $250,000. And her CPA was like, "Oh, you did a Roth contribution. You can't do that. You made too much money." She was like, okay, I didn't know any of that. So what your income is going to dictate, if you can or cannot do some of these things. If that's the case, if you can look at, all right, maybe I'm going to be over that 188,000 threshold with combined incomes, like total joint household income. That's where, maybe the simple IRA or the SEP IRA are going to make the biggest difference. They're very, very easy. Pretty much any, you could even set one up on your own, technically, at Fidelity or Schwab or anywhere. But it is a really good idea to talk to an expert beforehand, because you want to make sure you're not contributing too much. You want to make sure you're staying, within all of the IRS rules, because you absolutely do not want to be paying penalties for accidentally saving too much, or, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Oh,
So
Hannah, I'm so glad you brought up simple IRAs, because we had a question come in from the attendees. Yes, specifically about she has invested in a SEP IRA previously, but now she's considering a simple IRA, and she does have, she runs her own firm. She has one employee attorney and two other admin employees. So it's not just her, and maybe talking about when do you graduate from a SEP IRA to a simple IRA, and what should you watch out for with that transition?
yes, perfect. That is like absolutely perfect lead in, because the SEP and the simple are very different. The SEP tends to be a really good tool if you are by yourself, and you can, put away, it's roughly about 20% of your self-employed Schedule C income is, kind of the rough estimate. Technically, it's 25% of your wages, but when you're self-employed, that gets reduced a little bit. So, if you are making a good amount of money, a lot of times the SEP is the most that you can put away in a very easy to use account. But the problem with that is it's on a percentage basis. So the maximum that you're allowed to put in is 58,000, I think, for this year. I have to check on the update. So it might be about 58,000 into a SEP IRA for 2021. So that's 20-ish% of your self-employed income, Schedule C. But whatever that percentage is, you have to do the exact same thing for your employees if you have an employee. Anyone who meets the eligibility criteria, which, we can post some resources that give you the eligibility criteria, because it's a little bit different than a simple IRA, for example. So if you have an employee that makes, I think it's over $600 a year, has, more than 1,000 hours of service with you, has worked for 3 out of the last 5 years, there are, certain criteria that you can set that maybe some employees wouldn't meet, but any employee that meets that criteria, you have to do the same percentage. So all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't really want to do 20% to each employee. That's a little bit more than I can handle, but you don't want to, drop your own contribution down to 5%, right? So that you can do just 5% to each person. So at that point, that is, once you've got employees that meet the eligibility criteria, then it really makes sense to start thinking about a simple. And the simple is different because you're not required to make that same like match to everyone. There are some parameters around what your match can be. So you do have to do something, but it's a match and it's not an automatic contribution. So if, say, in this firm owner's case, so she's at the top and we'll say just three people under her. If she says, okay, I'm going to do a 3% matching contribution to anything you put in, and all three people qualify, so she can put in up to maybe 16 or 17,000. Again, you have to look up the limits again. She can put in that amount as her own, she's an employee, she can put in that amount. And then if the other three employees also put in, say they put in 3%, and then she matches 3% to each person. At the end of the year, when she has all of her income figured out, she can then do a 3% match of her own compensation as the employer into her simple. So there is a bigger contribution that can be had by doing the, contribution during the year and then doing the employer match for herself. And then these three employees down here, let's say 2 of them are contributing and she's doing somewhat of a match. And one person is like, no, I don't really want to contribute. She doesn't have to do a match for that person. So it is a more flexible plan. You have to do 3% at least 2 out of every 5 years, I believe. It's something around that. So you can lower it, you can do 2% or down to 1%, but it can only be those lower percentages for a couple of years out of a 5, like a rolling 5-year period. So there are, technicalities around it that you want to talk to, your CPA, your financial advisor. Sometimes, accountants don't always know exactly the rules that you have to follow. So you just have to talk to them about that. And if you don't feel comfortable that that person knows enough about SEP IRAs or simple IRAs, talk to someone else. I have had clients have issues with CPAs not understanding how a SEP IRA works. Literally just this past year, we had to correct someone. And so you just understand that there are a lot of rules that we have to be really up on. So yeah, with the SEP, it's mostly if you start having employees that start meeting the minimum criteria, that's when you might want to start thinking about a simple. And from there, the simple, that might actually graduate up to the 401k. But that, it just depends on how much people want to save.
You sound like a lawyer, Hannah. It
Right?
depends. So, I think that is a great guideline, right? And we do like to think of benchmarks. We like to think of guidelines. Of course, everything is very personalized. But if you're just starting out, starting with a SEP IRA, if you're all by yourself, probably makes sense. There's a lot of flexibility there. But as you grow, if you're bringing in employees, the flexibility becomes a hindrance more than a benefit. And we want to maybe add some more structure that allows for more personalization inside the plan itself for different tiers of employees and things like that. So that I think is very helpful. I remember when I first learned about SEP IRAs, I was like, I need to start my own business. These contribution limits are way better than what I get with the regular 401k or anything else. Business owners are really lucky. And then I remembered, oh yeah, business owners pay for everything. That's right. I forgot.
Both sides of that sword, right?
Trade off. But you mentioned tax planning, and I think most business owners probably know, well, gosh, I'm not doing this without an accountant of some sort. Or some of the braver ones might want to go out on their own if they're doing something very, very simply. But talk to me a little bit about what your role is with respect to tax planning for your clients, and when they already have an accountant, does it still make sense to bring someone like you into the mix from the tax planning perspective?
Yes. So I get that question quite a bit as far as, like, okay, what do you mean tax planning? Doesn't my CPA do that? Your CPA does taxes, and anything that I recommend that will affect your taxes in a big way, we always want to coordinate. So with business owners, this is another thing that business owners versus, just P&G executives, there's still a tax planning that matters, but with business owners, it is critical. Like, we have to be completely in sync with the CPA and make sure that all of the financial planning, all of the retirement planning, any capital gains distributions from the business, all of that stuff, we need to work together with the CPA. So I love having relationships with CPAs who are very, like, communicative. That is the best, when you can send an email or pick up the phone and, like, talk about, hey, we have this mutual client, like, here's what we talked about. What do you see in the pipeline for, if they've done estimated taxes, what do you recommend? If we do this planning, is that going to change the estimated taxes? Do you recommend any difference in the Q3 or Q4 estimates that are paid? A lot of what business owners are looking to do, and this is actually another soapbox that I stand on, is that I have worked with so many business owners that want to show no profit at all. Like, they want to, like, if I don't show any income, I don't have to pay any taxes. Okay, yeah, like, that's true. But if you don't show any income, you completely wipe out your ability to save anything for the future in a meaningful way. So there's this mindset shift that you have to work through, and there's a lot to talk about with that, with people who this is maybe a little bit more, less in the service-based industry, but people who can buy equipment. Although you can also buy vehicles, like, there's people will find ways to spend the money that will, show deductions. And we have to look at it from that tax perspective. That's really where the planning for business owners comes in, because it's not about, or rather it is about balancing the deductions with the retirement savings. So if we can show that, hey, you know what, your taxes are going to change a little bit because you're not showing no income, but we can put away, 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand that, if we save it, we can just put it right away and it's going to, pull those taxes almost back to where you were. And you've just saved, $40,000 for retirement without, really changing your tax situation that much. And you don't have like 1,000 reams of paper and a new copier that you didn't need, right? Because you just wanted to.
$40,000 in your retirement account or $40,000 of more equipment? Would you rather? Which is going to keep you warm at night?
Exactly. So, I mean, it's like a light bulb moment when business owners can understand that those things are not mutually exclusive, right? Like you don't have to lower your income that hard. You can save in a big way. You can even, those match contributions for your employees, those are also tax deductible, right? So, I mean, all of that comes off the top and you've just saved for yourself. You've just provided benefits to your employees. There's no downside. There's no downside. And then we can, if you do have a tax liability, there are other, strategies that we can look at to, once we have the numbers, we can, oh, well, is there anything else we can do? Are there charitable contributions or organizations that you want to support? And all of that is part of the wealth planning process. And knowing your situation so well, knowing how to help you position your income so that you've got it ready. That's the other big thing for business owners, is that, it just gets spent through the year. So, okay, now it's tax time. I need money to pay my taxes. I can't do both. All right. Well, if we had planned throughout the year for that, we would have money to pay the taxes. We would have money to do the retirement contributions, and you'd be just, still socking away money each month. So there's pre-planning that goes into that so that you are always ready for tax time. And again, working really closely with the CPA is super, super important. A lot of, a bookkeeper or, someone like yourself, another person who helps with the day-to-day, budgeting, bookkeeping. I don't do that. I'm not a bookkeeper and I'm not a CPA. So I manage investments, I manage savings, I manage, mindset around those things. And that hand-holding, literally any big financial decision has, a lot of different options. And so my role is to help people see what the options are, what each one might mean right now for taxes, right now for your savings, and in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, what does that look like when we project it out? And then helping, like, these are your choices. This is what it looks like. Which one makes the most sense to you and which one feels right?
In the business space, or rather in the personal finance space, if you spend enough time, if you read enough books, right? If you spend enough of your own time, because this is now your hobby, learning the landscape, you can probably figure it out, right? I work with very brilliant people, and I was a lawyer who wasn't good with money before I became good with money, so I taught myself too, right? These things are possible. That being said, most of the lawyers that I work with actually enjoy something else other than learning personal finance, let alone what it would take to become an expert in all of these different areas as a business owner. I think the landscape is just so much, it's even more varied, and the opportunities for optimization are there if you can find them, but they are very difficult to find if you are not familiar with the landscape. So talk to me a little bit about what it's like to kind of sign on with you. And if folks have questions, please pop them into the chat and we'll make sure that Hannah gets to them before we have to wrap up the Zoominar. But I also want people to get a sense of, what is it like to sit down with you and what does the relationship look like over its lifetime?
Yeah, so I do first we do a consult, I call it an exploration call, because what we're really doing is exploring if what I do, the way I work, personality wise, everything, we're exploring if that fit makes sense. Because it is a long-term relationship. Usually, when you have a financial advisor that you click with, that's someone that, knows literally everything about your finances. And, that's a really deeply personal thing for most people. And then when you're a small business owner, there's all the personal side. If you have a spouse that works as well, we've got to marry those pieces together. Your personal and your business finances are going to always affect each other. And so, it's a very entwined relationship that you have to feel really, really comfortable asking any question and being able to, trust, the wealth advisor that's helping you. So, the first thing, I always say when I jump on an exploration call with someone is that, my job through this call is to help provide clarity as to whether, if this is something that you really need right now, if it's something that you feel that you want right now, and if I'm the right person to do it. And it's a two-way street. If I feel really compelled to help someone, I'll let them know. If it doesn't feel like a good fit, I know a lot of other people that are also wonderful wealth advisors, and I can recommend other people. And I'm not, I don't hesitate to tell someone that either, like, I know someone who I think would be really, really great for you, if it's not a good fit. So I want clients that I love to work with and who love to work with me. Um, because once we do that, it takes, I've got, this all over my website too. It takes, we have to have a clear and concise, we have good data in, in equals good results out, garbage in, garbage out, same flip side of that coin. But we want an accurate and an achievable plan. We want it to be accurate so that we can make it actionable and then achievable. So once we decide, yeah, like I really think you're the person who can help me with this, we are going to take a look at all of the business finances. I'm not going to look at your receipts, like your CPA. I'm not going to do that much, or like the day to day. But I do want to know, what's your profit and loss? What are you taking as an owner's draw? How is your business set up? Are you LLC or sole prop? Are you an S corp, PLLC? Like, what's going on business structure wise? What do you have in place? What do you know already? Like, we're going to do like a whole analysis of where you're at in your business. We're going to do the same thing for your personal, and we're going to find out where all of your accounts are. I see a lot of law firm owners, and more so with business owners than with other people. It's like you launched a business, but you worked other places before, and we have like 4 or 5 different institutions where your money's kind of everywhere. And when we pull it all together and you see it and wrap your hands around it in one place, you're like, wow, that's a lot. One, easier. Two, I don't have as many statements. And three, like, I can see all of my money and I can see what it's all doing. And I can see that it's all working together in the same strategy. Um, so yeah, we're gonna take a big, like, full analysis of everything. So it's a little more time intensive on the front end, but within that first 30 days, we're gonna know where everything is and exactly what your situation looks like. Within the first 60 days, we're gonna have a rough draft of a plan, and we're gonna go over it, and you're gonna say, I like that, I don't like that, I want this is my goal, and then we're gonna fine tune it. And then by 90 days, you're gonna have a plan that looks like a roadmap that says, here's what I really want for the future. Here's where I am now. And here are the steps that we're going to take, every month, every quarter, whatever the right fit is for each person. We're going to make sure that we're doing those things on a regular basis. And I'm your accountability partner. I'm your investment manager. All of those pieces, so that once we've got that plan, we're going to check in on it, at least every 6 months. But usually, my business owners like to meet or have questions more frequently than that. Um, And then as your business grows, as you add in more employees, we're going to keep looking at it. We're going to keep looking at what's your profit look like? What does your owner's draw look like? How much do you need, to pay your employees? What kind of tax, strategies can we do now that things are expanding? And as your goals get bigger, we can change that. It's a living plan. It's not, it's not in a stone template. It's, here's where we want to go, but we could go look at another mountain too. We could stop and go different places along the way. So it really is an ongoing relationship in that sense. And that's where I really provide the most impact, and really allowing business owners to understand that you can, just like you said, you can go, like, I am here to take the pieces that you're not, like the best at, so that you can do the thing that you're the best at. And you can like push your business forward so much faster because you're leaning into the things that you love and that you're really, really good at, and you're giving the other stuff away. And I've done that myself, so I can help with that too. Like, what do you need to give away? Well, you're really good at this. So how can we get you doing that thing so that, you're spending more time in the thing that you love and that you are just like killing it at, and, letting other people take the other stuff off your plate.
Yeah, I think the finances and all of really the back office considerations for business owners can be such a rabbit hole to go down, and you can spend all your time there, or you can spend your time on your business, and you can have someone who can do this work faster, cleaner, more tax efficient, right?
Right.
than you might be able to come up with on your own. And that makes it so much easier to do the work that you actually love, because you do really have a lot more energy to focus into that area. But so Hannah, I want you to pop into the chat the links where people can find you, and let them know the best way to reach out to you. And if anyone else has any lingering questions, I do let the Zoominars go a little longer than 45 minutes, but I also want to respect everyone's time. But in terms of kind of reaching out to Hannah and seeing, what it would be like to work with her, as a business owner myself, I struggle with these issues too, and I see it for my own clients, in terms of when do I get support. I think for my individual clients that are lawyers in law firms, or in-house or something like that, it's a different analysis than for my business owners. My business owners benefit from support much earlier in the game than than my W-2 employees, and I'm very transparent about that. But I just think it's so much more helpful. And when you're a business owner, you have so much more on your plate that you have to worry about. What if you didn't have to worry about your retirement planning? What a relief! So
Right. Yeah, exactly.
and
And it's all, oh, let's see. I did see, oh, you answered that one. SEP IRA, likely a good starting point. Yeah, I would agree with that. If you are brand new solo, the SEP is also the easiest one to start later in the year. A simple has to be started by October 1st. So if you don't know if it's the right thing, and you miss that deadline, then well, you're screwed anyway. So the SEP, you can start all the way up until the tax filing deadline of 2022. So there's just more flexibility. So you'll know how much you've made. If you were able to put away some money, and make that first, contribution, those things are available. But yeah, the SEP is a really nice one because you don't have to know today. You can wait until next year. You could even, maybe a traditional or a Roth is the right thing to do for 2021. But maybe you can put more away into a SEP, and you can do both. There are ways to do both. That's one of my favorite strategies, is if you're able to do a SEP and traditional, we can lower the taxes even further. I love combining things in ways like that. Let's see. Don't have a real handle. When do you recommend setting set up? Okay, so from Jennifer, I just got started working with Jessica for personal. I just launched my law firm on May 1st. Congratulations. That's so awesome. Yeah. And I don't have a real handle on what my income is likely to look like. When do you recommend getting set up with the SEP set up, or when do you recommend that I should start looking to work with someone like yourself? You know, it's never too early for an exploration call. Like I said, the only thing that I want to do on those is to provide clarity. There are people that will benefit right away. And even if they don't have, you know, business income or business SEP or simple or 401k setup already, all of the other piece of it, like I said, it really marries personal and business finance together. So working with your old plans, making sure everything is good. If you need capital for, you know, launching, you know, there are ways to use what you have. So Jessica, you might go through some of that as well. Like, okay, what do I have that I can really use? And what should I really like not use if I can and manage that at all? But yes, there are there are reasons to at least talk to someone and at least find out, you know, and if it's like, oh yeah, I really want to work with you, but I just, you know, and I don't feel like it's quite the right time just yet. I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's circle back in 3 months. If something else happens before then, yeah, like absolutely call me, but let's circle back in 3 or circle back in 6 and see how you're feeling. So never too early to at least talk to someone about it. With the SEP, again, if you've got some projections, it's 1 month in. So there's probably just a ton of stuff going on, but you have time. You don't have to figure it out right now. Um,
And the contributions to the SEP can be made later in the year as well. They don't need to be made on a rolling basis, or there isn't some sort of quarterly limit or anything along those lines. It can be a bulk
right,
contribution at the end of the year, or at least when we have more information for kind of what's going on. So it is a very flexible tool when it's just you, and very powerful. Um,
right,
but yeah, I love talking to people, just figuring out, what am I missing? What am
right.
I
Yeah. Yeah. What else is in there? Yeah. So let's
Oh,
see.
we have some fellow law firm owners out there providing support, and this is one of the things that I love. The more folks that I work with that actually go off to start their own firms, that are now all part of my community, and they can connect with each other, because it really is a special journey. And you know, it's Hannah can tell you, right? We are both business owners ourselves. It is a journey in self-exploration, and to the extent that you can get help with all these nitty-gritty parts, all the better. You will definitely enjoy it more. Hannah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. This has been so enlightening for myself as well. And you know, I think there is so much to know. That's so true, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your comments and for everyone showing up. And the recording will be sent out tomorrow, so you can go back through all of these good information that Hannah has shared with us. But again, thanks everyone, and keep coming to the Zoominars. We're going to keep providing all of this information that we can to make sure you have what you need to be able to do exactly what you want. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.